Hey cozy besties, it's Joel, and this week I'm going to be getting into some Greek mythological retellings because I'm finally going to be reading Circe and I am so excited for it. Apart from these 3 books, I have a whole shelf filled with like Greek mythological reads, and I noticed like when I was looking at them last week that I hadn't really read some of them, most of them, and so I'm definitely tackling that today and getting a start on these shelves by reading these 3 books. I would have done more books like my usual 5, however I feel like I'm going to be going into some depth with these books, and so I definitely think 3 books for this video is the way to go. It might be a better format overall. I hope you're all doing very well and that you're looking after yourselves. If you've yet to get that beverage or snack of your choice, please do so, as we must remain well hydrated and taken care of. And if you've yet to check out any of my other socials, I would highly recommend you go do that as well, because I post some extra bookish content that you're not gonna see here. We have a range of different authors, we have a range of different myths. So the very first one is Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. This one is a retelling of the myth of Medusa, and I find Medusa such like an intriguing character. I think my introduction to Medusa was literally through the Sarah Jane adventures, through the Gorgon episode that they had. Yeah, I feel like Medusa was probably one of the first Greek mythological figures that I was introduced to. Then we'll be leading into Circe by Madeline Miller. This one is one I know a lot of people have been raving at me to read for the longest time, my own boyfriend included. He's literally been trying to get me to read this since we've met. I'm finally doing it. I just needed to be in the right headspace, and I cannot wait to finally start and read Circe because I think it's just gonna be so good. I mean, Madeline Miller's writing is always like fantastic and stellar and wonderful, and so finally being able to read this is gonna be really amazing for me. I will be a different person after reading this probably. We shall see. We might see a whole metamorphosis happening. Also, look at this nakedness of Circe. Like, it is so gorgeous. Like, I am so utterly mesmerized by it. And then the final book that we'll be getting into is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I do own Ariadne, Electra, and Atalanta. However, I definitely feel like it's time for me to actually get into those books and get into the writings of Jennifer Saint. But I wish Waterstones actually did the other 2 books in this colorway as well, because they did it for Ariadne, but they didn't do it for Electra or Atalanta, and I'm kind of like sad about that. Regardless, that's like a really minor problem. I'm just really excited to read this, because I know a lot of people have been saying that Jennifer Saint's writing really is like kind of reminiscent of Madeline Miller, and the way that they both do their Greek retellings is so foundational to the feminist Greek retelling like movement. I'm really excited to see what each of these tales bring for when I read them, and they're gonna be quite quick reads as well, which I'm really happy about, because I've been in this kind of weird reading slump for a while. It's been like since the beginning of this year. Like, reading has been a lot harder this year, and I don't know why. I've been taking my time with it. I've been much more in like a mood reading kind of scenario rather than like a must read kind of scenario. But before we get into these amazing Greek mythological retellings, I want to take a moment to thank Audible for sponsoring a portion of today's video to talk about Virgil, a mythological musical which is available now on Audible. Following along with the theme of today's video of Greek mythological retellings, this is a queer retelling of Virgil's epic tale of the Aeneid. And I do have like a very old copy of Virgil's Aeneid as well, which I really like. And this follows Aeneas, who flees Troy after its fall and embarks on an epic quest with many trials, such as facing cyclopses and also traveling deep into the underworld. And so in this musical production, you'll hear over 25 songs featuring stars such as Will Young and the drag queen Davina De Campo. Additionally, Audible provides thousands of hours of audio entertainment for you to enjoy. Whether you want to listen to The Final Strife, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, or Babel, all of which I do very highly recommend, there are some awesome books for you to explore. New members receive a free 30-day trial and get to pick and keep a title each month, which includes best-selling titles and new releases, and you'll get to download these and listen to them anytime and anywhere. And so if you want to check out Audible for yourself and experience the awesomeness of Virgil, a mythological musical, then you can use the link in my description in order to download Audible today and get that free trial. And so now that we've covered Virgil, let's get started on our exploration of Greek mythological feminist retellings. Hello, it's been a hot minute since I spoke to you since the intro. I went to Hay Festival, was an amazing time. I came back, got sick, and now I'm ready to discuss the very first book that I read, which was Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. As you can probably tell, things are a little bit different. The microphone has changed. I no longer have this like big microphone at my face. I have a sword by here pointing directly to my mouth, picking up every single thing that I'm saying. And, you know, I feel like this will be quite a nice little dynamic. I saw Daniel Green do it over on Fantasy News, and I was kind of mesmerized by it. I know there's a few other people who use these kind of mics on like TikTok, like Reagan from Peru's project, and I'm trying it out for myself and seeing what I think. So let me know what you think in the comments. But this book was wonderful, and I'm going to immediately dive into my analysis of this because I have so many things to say. Stoneblind follows the story of Medusa, the mythological Gorgon who continued to stone with a single glance and also has snakes for hair. And I recently rewatched the Sarah Jane Adventures episode of the Gorgon, and there was the references to this tale, although there were some slight variations, I will say that, probably to make it so that kids can watch it. But yeah, it was intriguing to see how they represented the tale as well, and also how they basically depicted them as parasitic aliens from outer space was also intriguing. But in Haynes's retelling of the tale, she really delves into the role that women had in this story, delving into the perspectives of Medusa, her Gorgon sisters, Hera, Athene or Athena, amongst other women as well. But I will say that for a story that's supposed to be focused on Medusa, there wasn't really a lot of chapters from Medusa's perspective. We got snippets from her and snippets from something that I will say is akin to Medusa, but I feel like a lot of the stuff we got was from other people, and I do feel like we missed out on some of Medusa's character development because of it. But that's not to say that this story was bad. No, it was very, very good. Natalie Haynes's writing was like really wonderful to witness. The way that she crafted descriptions and the way she weaved this tapestry of Medusa'S tragedy was so emotional at points to read as well, and I really fell in love with the voice of Medusa and the voice of the Gorgoneon, and the way that the Gorgoneon would depict and talk about certain things I really loved as well. We got to see a version of Perseus, sorry Percy Jackson for your namesake, but he literally acted like a single-minded child. From that, you can really empathize with Medusa, who really in this tale was an innocent in all of this and was forced into playing a role of a monster by the gods of Olympus. And it really goes to show that it doesn't even matter if you're beautiful or a monster, the gods of Olympus will literally find a way to use you in their schemes of divine intervention. It was really like sad to see Medusa basically just be used by the gods again and again and again and again, and all she wanted to do was live a quiet life on an island with her sisters and also explore the mortal world a little bit. And speaking of, I loved the slice of the world that Haynes had created with Medusa and her sisters. The way that the sisters really changed and developed because of Medusa being brought to them, and you can really see that it felt like destiny for Medusa to go to them. And it was also intriguing to see the birth of Athene or Athena coming out of Zeus's brain, you know, headache and all, and how she grew in the court of the Olympian gods and was molded into the role that she takes within Medusa's story. I would argue that Athena played like the biggest role in Medusa'S tragedy, but I think also it was the pressure of wanting to prove herself to the other Olympian gods and also keep her father happy that forced her to make the decisions that she did throughout the story. And it just goes to show that Haynes does not shy away from showing us the brutality and recklessness throughout this story, and especially from the men within this, from like Zeus to Poseidon to Hephaestus as well. There's a lot that can be said for the way that the men operated themselves within this book, and there are not a lot of nice things I would say to the men within this book. And in each situation, they get away with it because of the society that they've created. The society that just allows them to do whatever they want because they're these powerful men, and the women in this story have to navigate that and try and mold it so that they can at least get some modicum of power. And the women in their own way are distinctly flawed within this as well, and I love how Haynes brought the flaws in to add a sense of dimension to their characters as well. They were definitely not flat within this, which I really like to see. But I just feel like because there were so many different perspectives within the book, like I mentioned earlier, it then made the reading experience a little bit jarring because we were jumping all over the place and it was hard to keep track at first. But again, I also do wish we just got more from Medusa within this, as I would have just loved to witness more of a character growth from her. We're there for the important moments, but we're not there for the defining moments, if you get me. And that's where I feel like the book could have been a little longer as well, showing us those defining moments in Medusa's life. That's like my little caveat with this book. But apart from that, I was very happy with it. And Gorgoneon constantly roasting Perseus throughout this book was literally my favourite part. And it just goes to show that Natalie Haynes crafted an intriguing and fascinating retelling of Medusa's story in Stoneblind, bringing a much needed side to this character's story, because it's more often than not that these women are forgotten about within history and their powers are reduced so that they're never as strong as the men. However, we'll see time and time again that these women do have a lot of power and they choose when to use it. They don't just throw it about willy-nilly because they're, they're not Zeus, but they're very clever in the way that they operate. And I love that. And so I enjoyed reading Stone Blind, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested in the Medusa myth, or people who also watched the Gorgon episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures, because, you know, I have to be here to make the very niche references. And so yeah, I enjoyed this immensely. So once again, it's no surprise to anyone that I was utterly transformed and mesmerized by a Madeline Miller book. And there's just something in Circe, I do not know what it is. I think it's just something in the way that Madeline Miller is able to characterize and personify things. It truly grips me, and the way that Madeline Miller tackles themes of power, identity, family, mortality, sexuality. There were just so many things within this book that truly made it the compelling read that I knew it was gonna be, but I'm still surprised by it. Circe follows the titular character, daughter of Helios, on what I would describe as a journey of self-discovery. A journey of finding her power and, of course, her well-known exile to the island of Aiaia. This story is also only and primarily told from Circe's perspective, which compared to Stone Blind, don't get me wrong, was such a refreshing change, because I really got to witness and see her character journey from going from the daughter of Helios to the witch of Aiaia to something else that I probably will not touch upon because it's spoilery, but ooh, was it a satisfying ending. And this has just solidified to me that I love Madeline Miller's books so much, and you bet that I've already ordered the special edition of Circe that matches the Song of Achilles. Look how gorgeous it is. It is so beautiful. It's just the way that Madeline Miller crafts her worlds and crafts like her stories. It just makes me want to sit by a campfire, listen to them, and live in the worlds that she creates. And especially for me as a writer, there's so much I can take from this book in telling my own stories. It's pretty amazing. I just adore the way that she crafts mood and atmosphere, how she builds the life surrounding the characters, and the environments that they live in. There's just a way that she's able to make everything so mystical and wonderful, while also like writing in this kind of classical way that feels very modern. I think this would be the perfect book that I would recommend to someone who's scared of reading classics but wants to try and like dip their toes into them a little bit. It's just such a beautiful book, a beautiful story about such a phenomenal woman. I was talking to my boyfriend as he'd already read Circe, and we both came to the agreement that even though she's in exile, Circe is literally living her best cottagecore life. Apart from the men that come to her shore, I mean, they also do contribute to the cottagecore life eventually. She grows herbs, flowers, plants, and does like witchy spells, and like raising cattle, and like having all that land all to yourself. It's truly quite the cottagecore life, and I mean, if you got books there on that island, ooh, I would probably adopt the exact same lifestyle. And I think despite being isolated, I think the isolation on the island of Aiaia was truly the moment of Circe's immense character growth, because it allowed for a lot of introspection and for Circe to kind of start realizing her power, and it was just beautiful to read, seeing how she grew into this power that could rival the gods themselves. And like I aforementioned with Stone Blind, Circe does play a role in the machinations of the Olympian gods, and she's always seen as this kind of pawn to play, and it's true for a lot of women within Greek mythology, as they're often not seen as a realized character, but just a caricature to play. However, in Circe, Miller actually actualizes a lot of these women with personality, precision, and purpose. Additionally, there are just so many characters that added to the complexity of Circe's character growth, from Helios, Glaukos, and Scylla. I mean, Scylla, ooh, that was a very fundamental moment in Circe's life that I feel like can be touched upon in such an analytical way. But then we also get Hermes and Athena to Odysseus, Penelope, and Telemachus and Telegony. I'm literally naming all of the main characters. It was intriguing to see how each of them contributed to Circe's character growth, and how each of them had a role to play in who she became at the end of the book, and how each of them really made her act for better or for worse in order to protect herself and all that she loves. And this isn't a spoiler as it happens right in the beginning of the book. However, I really want to touch upon the conversation that Circe has with Prometheus, because I'm kind of a little obsessed with Prometheus, given the fact that I'm researching the Promethean myth for the book that I'm writing at the minute. As not only did I find this conversation quite influential to my writing, but also I feel like the conversation that Prometheus has with Circe kind of defines the rest of the book. And I really find it amazing how this like slice that might not be as important in the beginning really does help set up the trajectory of the rest of Circe's journey. As someone who's very much loving reading about Prometheus at the minute, it was a little egg that I really appreciated. I really want to talk about Odysseus and Circe, as it was intriguing to read the dynamic between them, especially when you factor in Penelope's perspective of Odysseus later on. And Penelope, who I did wish ended up with Circe, and they had like a little witchy lesbian couple on the island of Aiaia. That would have been like my personal like headcanon, and maybe I will write fanfiction about it. But I feel like Penelope's perspective of Odysseus defined the fact that sometimes you don't know a person completely, and there could be a part of them that you don't see, and you only really get them at their best. Overall though, I just found this book to be utterly remarkable. remarkable, and it's definitely a book that I will return to and reread and like peruse through in the days, weeks, months, and years to come. And I wish I could go more deeper into this book, like pulling out quotes and pulling out like a deeper analysis. However, I would literally be here for 40 minutes discussing primarily Circe in and of itself. And maybe one day I will do like a deeper analysis into Circe and into the Song of Achilles. Like I feel like that would be pretty awesome, but I don't know when and I don't know what form that would take. But Madeline Miller's writing is just so rich and wonderful, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't read any Madeline Miller yet, because it's just beautiful. But yeah, so that's my initial thoughts about Circe by Madeline Miller. After being introduced to her in Circe, reading Ariadne's story in Jennifer Saint's novel was truly an experience that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. It follows the titular character, Princess of Crete, daughter of King Minos, who constantly hears the echoes of the hoofbeats of her brother, the Minotaur. Beneath the Golden Palace, in a labyrinthine structure, her brother demands blood sacrifice. And so when Theseus, Prince of Athens, comes to vanquish the beast, Ariadne sees this as a form of escape. But will she defy the gods, betray her family, and do everything in her power to help Theseus kill the Minotaur? Kill her brother. And so these are just girly things to consider, you know. And in this tale, Ariadne continues the focus of women's role in Greek mythology, and more specifically, the pain that they endure as a result of the actions of men. It's always men. And it follows a similar tangent to Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes, especially as we consider the sister relationship between Ariadne and Phaedra. And the relationship was just so intriguing to read about in this, specifically the respective journeys that both Ariadne and Phaedra embark upon. Ariadne trying to find a form of escape, whilst Phaedra tries to survive in the environment that she's in. And the exploration of their relationship within this book was just so phenomenal to read about as well, especially as we see how they grow when they're together, but also how they grow when they're apart as well. And Ariadne herself was just such a compelling and captivating character, seeing how she constantly rises above adversity, and we do follow her through more of her life, and it was intriguing to see what came next after the Minotaur, and I wasn't let down. But this book definitely did make me hate men more than I did before, especially when we factor in Theseus and Hippolytus as characters. Like, how can they both be awful people? I mean, they are father and son, so I guess it runs in the genes. But I will say that it was interesting to witness their character actions throughout the story, especially with the retelling of the Minotaur myth, which was actually one of the first myths that I had heard. I think in primary school it was, and I think we put a play on of Theseus and the Minotaur in primary school, now that this is all coming back to me now, wow. And it was intriguing to see where Jennifer Saint took the story next, and I was constantly surprised by the things that were happening. Although, with the ending of this book, I found like the last 50 pages or so to be quite devastating, yet not surprising, given men, but also a reminder that more often than not, women are unable to avoid the machinations of the Olympian gods. And so overall, Ariadne by Jennifer Saint definitely delivered a phenomenal retelling of a woman in the Minotaur myth who deserved to have her story told. And I'm definitely intrigued to read Electra and Atalanta next, as Jennifer Saint's writing is so beautiful and so mesmerizing, and I think people were right when they likened her to Madeline Miller. I think Jennifer Saint is like the intersection of Madeline Miller and Natalie Haynes, and I really like that. And I think it was just really, really satisfying to finally read Jennifer Saint's work. And so yeah, these are 3 feminist Greek retellings that we have read together, and I am just so happy that I finally got to read these 3 books. Like, they've been on my TBR for the longest time. Gosh, I've been meaning to read Circe for years now, but I've just never really plucked up the motivation to do it until now, and I'm just super happy, and I'm really excited to see all of your thoughts and all of your reactions in the comments as well. I think it's really nice when all of you share your own thoughts and feelings about books, and we really get a discussion going in the comments, so let's do that. And I feel now more than ever, I'm really excited to just get back into the swing of creating regular content and also reading as well, because the first 6 months of this year were truly hard, because I was in a massive reading slump. I don't know what it was. I think it was just like post-moving depression, I want to say. I'm really, really excited to continue reading now, because I feel like I have finally conquered my reading slump, because there are some books that I do want to read this month, such as the book that wouldn't burn, The Shadow of the Gods. Fourth Wing, I think I might do a vlog on Fourth Wing, so let me know if you want to see that as well. And again, a massive thank you to Audible for sponsoring today's video. If you want to check out Virgil, a mythological musical, and also gain a free 30-day trial to Audible so that you can pick and choose any audiobook to listen anytime, anywhere, then you can use the link in my description in order to do so. And I would highly recommend that you go listen to one of the 3 books that I read today, because their audiobooks are also pretty phenomenal. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, be sure to click that subscribe button so you're notified whenever I upload next, and also click that bell icon so that you're notified whenever I upload. If you want to find find me on any other of my social medias, I'll have them linked in the description down below for you, so you can go follow me on every single other platform. And yeah, I think the sword microphone works for this. I really like the look of the sword microphone. But let me know what you think as well. And now I am probably gonna go get started on my next read. And so yeah, I guess until the next time, bye besties.